Hello and welcome to the most important European week in all of SPL, week number 5. I'm Anatoly, joined by Ron Jobert on the analyst desk. We just can't get rid of him.
Yeah, Golden Boy, I do miss him. I did really well with him, but with you, I know you have something against me. It hurts, but, you know, sometimes it just kind of happens.
Well, thank you, Sennheiser, yet again for providing the audio equipment for not only casters, but the players as well once they are in the LAN. This is the time for all these European teams to try to qualify for Super Regionals, but afterwards, it's HRX. You too can join the pros here at HRX. Go to hi-rezexpo.com. Use that code SMITE15 for 15% off.
Hi-Rez Expo is actually really fun. I know I've said it a million times, but you should definitely go. Like I said last time, even if you're alone, you'll have friends there. Just go. Trust me.
And, you know, speaking of friends here, obviously, you and me, we go back a little bit, we party up every now and then, and we are also going to party up after this SPL Saturday online, 2 times everything.
Yeah, back when I was a pro and we were both on the same team, and we were unstoppable. And you can't prove that. You can't go back and look that up. So.
I mean, I thought this is the point where you describe the characters on the screen there.
I don't know what you mean.
All right, moving forward here. Let's take a look at the European standings, because this is the most important part of today. Obey and Dignitas are sitting pretty at the top 2. They're guaranteed into Super Regionals. It's a battle of who gets that first seat. In the bottom, Burrito and Poppies are tied with 2 points. Battle for 7th and 8th. Everyone else controls their own destiny if they qualify to Super Regionals.
Granted, Burrito and the Poppies are already relegated, but this is still a fight for the seeding going into the gauntlet, so it matters a little bit. They can definitely step up and get to Super Regionals, even Worlds, hypothetically, if they do well at the gauntlet.
It's very important for all of these teams to get the best possible seeding. The day is going to be very long at the gauntlet, but speaking for today, let's take a look at today's schedule. Let's see how these games are going to pan out. Match number 1 of the day, Elevate against Valance Squad, and very important, it's going to be Baas filling in for Jermaine. Rival versus Energy will be the second matchup. Poppies versus Burrito, those 2 relegated teams, and the most interesting set, I think, the most dynamic, Obey versus Dignitas.
This week is insane. Elevate versus Valence is pretty much every single matchup is like a very 1-to-1 level of skill, because you have Elevate versus Valence and they're very close. You have Rival versus Energy. Rival still a bit of the newcomer because they only did well at LAN, not great on online, but against Energy, 2-time world champs, they'll have a lot to prove. And Burrito's Poppy, that's the great war for 7th.
Speaking about Energy versus Rival here, they will face off against each other. Energy with 6 points right now are sitting at that 6th seed, and they currently need to win both games to guarantee themselves into Super Regionals. If they only win one, it's going to be Rival instead.
Yeah, Energy cannot do the classic lose one game and then get mad and then lose the second game. They have to 2-0 here to get into Super Regionals, and Super Regionals without Energy is strange to me. It's foreign to me.
It's very interesting how both of these teams kind of just transition into the fall split, because they've been so dominant here in all of Season 4, spring or summer, but honestly, the online portion of it just doesn't seem to favor either of them.
Yeah, the online portion for both of them, like you said, does not seem to favor either one of them, and with Energy, it's a little bit more of a surprise, because Rival, even coming in, people would say, oh, they're not the best online team, but wait until they get to LAN. But having these other teams surpass them in these 3rd and 4th spots is a really big surprise.
And now it's all on the line for them, and I'm looking specifically here at the jungle matchup, Ice Baby against Adapting. We have always talked about Adapting so much, but Ice Baby recently has also kind of stepped things up.
Yeah, Ice Baby has always been a mechanically strong player. He's definitely a player that steps up in big games, obviously like the entirety of Team Rival, but Ice has like a lot of mechanical skill. Adapting is pretty much an entire complete player, but whenever Ice Baby puts it all together, he's pretty much unstoppable.
And from what I've seen from Ice and the rest of Rival, it's just their creativity between playing different gods you wouldn't normally expect, specifically that Vaman in the jungle role, always throwing teams for a loop.
Yeah, and yesterday on the Domination podcast, Deathwalker said, I'm not bringing out the Ares. I use all my Ares energy during DreamHack, but, you know, maybe he'll pull out something crazy. We'll see. I mean, I'd like it, but I'm not going to make him.
So how do you predict this matchup, Rival against Energy?
The safe bet has to be a 1-1, right?
Sure.
But I'm going to call a 2-0 Energy. Because
you think 2-0 Energy?
I think 2-0 Energy because Energy knows, and they've probably been going like absurd in scrims. They're probably going super hard. They're probably going to bust out something different. I think it's 2-0 Energy. I think they want to get to Super Regionals.
Well, I would have to actually agree with you. If Energy 2-0 here, I think they're not only going to win Super Regionals, I think they're going to go on to win Worlds. But I think if they split here is more of the safe answer, so I'm going to give it to the split. I think Rival will eventually pick up a game against Energy. But moving on to the first set of the day, Valance Squad against Elevate. Both of these teams also control their own destiny. Valance Squad sitting at 5th seed with 7 points right now. If they win both games, they're guaranteed in.
I'm expecting a split here, and I'm going to say that because I think both of these teams are very evenly matched. I think their playstyles are similar, both very aggressive teams. They can go back and forth, and if one team gets a lead, they could each game could probably be a stomp for the other team.
It's very true. Elevate, though, currently sitting at 3rd seed with 8 points. They're also tied with Rival, but Rival has that head-to-head record breaker 2-0 victory. All Elevate need to do is win one here, but more importantly, they're going to have to win one without their hunter. It's Baas stepping in for Jermaine.
Yeah, no Jermaine is going to hurt them a lot, and that might be a loss without Jermaine. That's going to be very, really rough. Jermaine, I don't know his role as a shot caller. I don't know, the team fight communications. I don't know that for sure. But Jermaine is very aggressive, and he probably is the person in communications saying, "Okay, go." Like he's the starter gun.
We definitely listened to a lot of the communications from Elevate back when they were at some of these lands, and the synergy there from Dardez and Jermaine, the way they played that dueling is just so aggressive. And the fact that Jermaine is not here, I'm not really sure how Baas is going to be able to fill in Jermaine's shoes. Is Dardez going to play that Nox support, or is he going to go something more standard?
They might go something safe. I think not having Jermaine might cause them to play a little bit, differently. Cherryo could still play the Guardian. You want to protect your hunter, especially if he's new, get a little bit of the tankiness going in the jungle. But it's going to be really interesting to see. And I think having a new hunter could, I don't know, maybe they'll bring out a strategy that they normally wouldn't, even if they had Jermaine.
You were talking about Cherryo's Athena jungle here, providing so much utility, so much support. What can you say about Faeles, though, coming out of Valance Squad?
Faeles is a very active hyper carry, I would say. He can play the assassins very, very well. He can play probably anything really well. He even plays the Ravana back when that was like a lot more meta. But Faeles, I think, has it in him to pull out any god in the assassin pool and just do well with it.
Well, it's time to do or die for Valance Squad. They need 2 points here. How do you predict this matchup?
As a split, I'm going to call a split. I think I think no Jermaine is the loss, but I think with Jermaine, they get back on their stride.
Okay, well, I think personally that without Jermaine, that Elevate will go 0-2 here. So let's go ahead and throw it to the casters for this first set of the day.
Thank you, Totally. Not just for passing it over, but for putting up with Ron Jobert. I am John Finch, and I got Taco here with me. Taco, you agree with Totally with that 2-0?
I think that 2-0 is a little bit harsh to say towards the rest of Elevate, because I still think that the team is a very formidable opponent for Valance. I think that they have it in them to at least pull away with one of these. Without Jermaine, though, it is going to be rough.
And it's not just that, you're missing Jermaine, but you're also up against Funballer, who I think is one of the top AD carries in Europe right now, if not in the world. He can very easily make that a difficult lane for Baas to try and farm through. And as you said, these points are so important right now. This is big. If Valance can get this 2-0 here, then just like Totally said, they're basically in.
It is actually insane when you think about it, because this has been probably one of the most pivotal moments for either side. For Elevate, it's all about Cherryo. He's really been dying to get to LAN again. And I think that if Elevate can make it to Super Regionals guaranteed, then that'll be like best case scenario for their pathing to Worlds. But as far as Valance is concerned, they've been so inconsistent this split that it's really hard to determine whether or not they'll be able to walk away with a clean set victory.
Well, let's go ahead and get those picks and bans up on the screen for you to see what they choose to do here in our first set of Week 5 here in EU. And as we said, this game's so important for them. In particular, like I said, I'm sure Cherryo wants to get to LAN, be on the lowest ping possible for him. He's not used to it over there in Egypt, but right now we got some pretty, well, maybe not so standard. Athena, the first ban here by Valance, that might be sort of a nod towards Elevate.
That's just a pure respect ban right there, not wanting to have to deal with Cherryo's Athena jungle, I would say. He's notorious for taking those tankier picks and moving them into the jungle role, so not having to worry about that, I think, is a very smart decision. The same thing for the Sylvanas. You don't want to allow Dardez to have a support that he's shown to be proficient on.
And this is an example of not banning the meta. This is banning out your opponent, specifically trying to do that. And Valance, they know they need these points today, so they're trying to shut Elevate down any way that they can, and they go ahead and pick up that Ratatoskr to give them a high-pressure jungle.
And I actually really like the Ratatoskr just because it's going to have that half global presence to be provided, can kind of control a little bit more the team fights whenever those start breaking out. But the response by Elevate with that Hui and Raijin selection, I really love this. A lot of clear already in the middle and duo lanes. Really interested to see what Elevate try to pair this off with.
I like this too. When you pick Hui, that frees you up to do that alone in the duo lane start that we've seen a lot more from our hunters lately because his jungle clear is just so good. He can start over there and secure his own buffs. And then Osiris and Fafnir picked out, so they ban away a couple tanks and then they pick up a couple.
I wouldn't be opposed to maybe an Ymir selection for Dardez as well for Elevate. They're going to lock away that Nemesis instead.
That makes Ymir better.
Smart choice.
Yeah.
It's a really smart choice here by Elevate, considering that Valence is already drafted fairly tanky, that Ratatoskr having some flexibility to build a bit more bruiser-oriented like we've seen from members such as Captain Twig. I wouldn't be surprised to see an Ankile mystical male Ratatoskr fusion coming out.
And Elevate turning an eye towards Lawbster, that mid lane for Valence, by banning out the Soul and the Hebo, trying to limit some of those big magic damage options since they've already secured the Raijin on their side. Picks like Scylla still available, so he's got some options as Bellona's locked in for Elevate. And Thoth, of course. Yeah.
And yeah, I think the Thoth selection is actually pretty interesting because so far there is a decent bit of setup right now between Fafnir's Hammerstone and the Ratatoskr ultimate.
Oh, wow.
And it's just a little bit of the early game pressure that I would be concerned of for Valence. But with that Skadi being picked up, I think that also kind of takes care of that issue.
Yeah, Skadi won't be struggling at all over there. So I mean that's good if you're in a situation where maybe you want to make sure you got pressure and that's in the duo lane. That'll do it for you with a Skadi. So good pick, and it is Ymir on Dardez. So that was a good call with that one too.
Just got to know, you get to learn Dardez after a little bit, and that was just one of those hunches I kind of felt like this draft was leaning towards, and especially with the Thoth and the Skadi selections, it makes it even easier for the Ymir to get those walls going, really start blocking off the members of Valence, have a little bit more spacing control for Elevate.
That's the difference between like a dash and a leap. That wall would cut off the dash and the escape option, at least through that path that it's blocking. And as you said, Elevate pick up the Nemesis too, who's an assassin that can give Ymir a lot of troubles early since he's so immobile. All those slows stacking up really hurt him a lot. So he should have an easier time on that Ymir now.
A little bit concerning though, because BigManTingz can cause quite a few problems for Dardez as well. Since it is Fafnir versus Ymir, Big Man's probably going to have one of the best ways to kind of heckle Dardez without getting into any sort of real trouble. And speaking of which, Dardez actually doing a great job representing that ice cream Ymir skin.
I love that skin. It's one of the best ones in the game right now. Pick it up if you don't have it already. But Dardez is going to be looking to make things not so sweet for his opponents in this first game. Faeles is hanging out, as is Ducky over in the solo side. And like we were thinking, Skadi and Hui both are going to be starting alone in the duo lane because they got such high clear. They're going to be able to handle it no problem.
We've been seeing a lot of ADCs actually joining the mid laners in Europe, particularly, where they will go and help the mid laner secure that clear, look for a potential invade on farm. But this time around, it just Elevate and Valence choosing to put their advantages where they can find them. And for Hui and Skadi, that's just leaving them to go at it 1v1.
That means that there's not going to be, well, actually there is no numbers in Cherryo heading over here now to try and see if they can get the invade on the blue buff since they started at the wave. Both of their buffs are up, and they push the wave under tower right away, and it looks like they are able to get it before a Valance squad can slow them down, but now can they escape?
No numbers, though. He should have his bludgeon up available pretty soon here. And with Dardez making the rotation, Ducky and Faeles not looking to stick around much longer. Actually forced into that sprint just to get away from the bludgeon damage from Cherryo.
They had to use it, especially with Dardez, like, hulking down the lane at them. They didn't have a choice. So good thing that they used it. They were able to get out. They do drop the blue buff, but the buffs are still available for Elevate on that side of the map. So there is a possibility if they want to go over there and try and invade as Dardez and DeathPanter come over to say hello at the red buff.
And Baas actually getting out cleared, it means that Funballer is just going to make that easy rotation, meeting up with Big Man and Lawbster. And that's not too awful for Elevate just yet. In a way, I think that Elevate were kind of expecting this to occur with Skadi versus Hui. Skadi does have a little bit more favor towards the clear. Thankfully enough, though, for Elevate, it was only the red buff that was stripped away from them, so they'll still be able to get the farm off of their purple.
And it does bounce back out since they were able to at least secure the enemy blue on the other side. So it's just over here on this duo side where they're having a little bit of trouble as Funballer does come up and just go ahead and get his own red buff now. Just add it on to the pile. Maybe drop that for his mid laner. Looks like that is going to be the call. So he'll let Lawbster have that one too.
It's just one of those more veteran experiences that you kind of expect Funballer to take the advantage. And Baas, he's not foreign to these players in the slightest. He's been around the scene for a while, more known for his time spent in this Challenger Cup area, but he's definitely still a pretty high-ranked player. He knows how to stalemate a lane. And I think that's going to be one of the most important parts, is kind of just biding his time until Elevate can start looking for those team fight rotations.
Yeah, I think as long as he makes sure that he doesn't let Funballer get too far ahead of them over there in the duo lane and start rotating and having a bigger impact than him, then he'll be okay coming out. He certainly going to be able to have impact with that big sun when he rains down the ultimate, as well as just his kit. It had so much penetration he's able to get with that mark of the Golden Crow when he places on you as well. So he's going to have a lot of options as long as he can stay close to Funballer and not let him snowball the lane.
I also feel as though this game is going to really put the pressure onto Cherryo and No Numbers to kind of step up and perform. No Numbers more so. Speaking of which, Dardez actually taking a little bit of poke out of that permafrost, but what I'm trying to say is that No Numbers has always been great at doing his job consistently and stepping and joining the team fights. But right now, without Jermaine, there needs to be a little bit more from the rest of the team, because Jermaine really does bring a lot of what they do together.
Faeles was lurking over there in that Gold Fury pit. He is level 5, so he has that ultimate through the Cosmos available. He could easily gank over onto the lane, but I think he thought better of it after getting, the information from BigManTingz and Funballer that they just weren't far enough up. Everything was still available. Nothing could be baited out. So instead, he ends up backing off. But that's something that you have to keep in mind when you're up against a Ratatoskr. If you're Dardez, Baas, even if you're No Numbers over here in solo, you could suddenly just have a rat in your lane. Especially
against being against a player like Faeles, who will constantly be looking for that pressure gank advantage. It's just something that kind of suits his playstyle, and that's why I really like the Ratatoskr selection for him, is because he can choose whether or not he wants to go utility or hyper carry, and he's probably going to lean a little bit more towards that hyper carry department.
And speaking of hyper carry, we see DeathPanter choosing to go with that Book of Thoth rush. That's what we see a lot of the times now, but that means he's going to have a lot of early power coming out on that Raijin, maybe giving up a little bit of extra sustain though in safety.
He is losing out on a little bit of mobility as well in comparison to Lawbster, who actually built up the boots too first and foremost. He also has that Sands of Time and the Boomba, so a little bit more sustain from Lawbster's end as well, and that's also helped Valence a lot with trying to contest the Elevate's jungle as well as the global farm.
So we're just seeing just a little bit different mindset between our mid laners and when they want to start having their impact. Oracles going over here towards Valance Squad. They were able to get it first, as Dardez had to back recently, so they just kind of had the numbers advantage on the map, and they clean up that neutral objective. Valence actually have all the vision on that whole left-hand side. You can see I've got the ward, actually a sentry ward up there too, in that path between the jungle and the mid lane, as well as over in between the duo lane and the jungle.
It's just going to be a whole lot of action. I think the way it's going to be split is Faeles will probably look for more aggression on the duo lane. Cherryo is going to be trying to put more emphasis onto solo lane and Ducky, because if Cherryo can get ahead alongside of No Numbers, then those two can start making the crucial rotations that Elevate's really going to need if they want to maintain the map pressure across the map.
And now Faeles is crashing down on top of Baas. He drops the Suns, but it's just a little bit too late. First blood going the way of Valance Squadron on to the new guy.
And just like that, Faeles already reminding Baas what it's like to come up to the competitive level.
That's
step
right.
Even a slightest toe out of position, and you're going to become basically gank material.
And I think that comes down to the vision that we were just pointing out, Taco. They had vision control over there, none for Elevate. They didn't know where anyone was, and Baas ends up getting punished for it when he comes out into the jungle. As you said, not particularly out of position or anything like that.
It's just the slightest bit. That's all it takes, is just a moment. And Faeles, he's been around long enough now at competitive to just recognize what he can and can't get away with, especially being on this Ratatoskr. It gives him that notion to just be able to push ahead, and having somebody like Funballer to follow you up is great. Cherryo now trying to come over just for a little bit of that farm, maybe getting some assistance off with Baas, but Funballer not having any of it so far.
I like this. Cherryo at least being where the enemy jungler is. Faeles is putting some pressure onto Baas continued, and Cherryo come over to try and alleviate it, but he takes way more poke than he bargained for in trade. So that's something he'll have to be a little bit mindful of, and he chooses to back. Funballer, though, he's here, he's looping around, gets down the permafrost. Cherryo is able to run away, no problem, but they slow the back timing down.
Fortunately enough for Cherryo, Funballer was actually off the mark with that first-hand ability, and that's going to actually buy him enough time. If Cherryo is hit by that ability from Funballer, then there's no doubt in my mind Funballer's committing to that kill.
Yeah, I think Funballer goes in even harder, might even get a little bit more follow-up from Faeles, too, who I think might have even had his ultimate backup in time for it, or maybe just now in the last few seconds, so certainly they would have tried, but able to get out is Cherryo. Nemesis is pretty safe over there as the jungler. And now we're taking back a look at the mid lane. Taco, with these two teams, they seem pretty even to me. Do you think either one of these composition-wise would have an advantage moving into the mid and late game?
Probably a little bit more in favor for Valence, actually, as the game progresses, simply because of, even though Elevate has a really strong team fighting draft, since they have a little bit more AoE to use, and it's just that Valence has so much target burst potential between Faeles and Lawbster alone. That's already pretty much a guaranteed kill onto whoever they manage to connect their ultimates with.
I agree. We've seen Ratatoskr in particular be a real good facilitator for the rest of his team. That knock up the global pressure, just the man advantage you can get for your team coming up real big as once again Valence take away these oracles, and they're getting close to about 1,000 gold lead as Cherryo takes a lot of pressure. It's actually Faeles who has to go up into the ultimate through the Cosmos. He's hanging out in those branches, just trying to get out of danger, but as we said, Valence were able to establish just a bit of a lead here, just from that early first blood.
That damage from DeathPanter, though, that was already a pretty significant chunk of Faeles' health. And sure, Ratatoskr is not exactly a bruiser, so he's not going to be super tanky, but taking that much poke and actually enough to where he's forced to ult away, that goes to show that Elevate's draft can be a little bit scary.
But Cherryo, I believe, did have to give up his beads in that engagement, too. We can see that they still have a little bit more time on them, about 120 seconds or so before he's able to use those again. So Faeles was at least able to trade it out. It might even be in his favor if you consider the length of that cooldown. So it's just a little bit that they were able to pull away from Cherryo. Still, though, the vision control on this side is going to be in control of Valance Squadron, and they're the ones who I'm looking to try and make that first big move.
Double sprints as well coming out from Valence as their team fighting relics. It shows that they're definitely a little bit concerned about the slows that Elevate has at their ability to use. It's just kind of annoying to deal with it. Dardez has a slow on the Ymir ultimate. There's also the slow in the Suns from Baas, and no numbers can also just get in the way.
Yeah, they got a lot of slows. We do have a real quick pause just coming out here for you, so we're working on that. But as you said, those slows are going to be a real big problem coming out from Elevate. Valance Squadron recognize, and they go twice into the sprint. It does mean, though, they won't have as much of an option against some of that big burst damage like the shell that we do see Elevate picked up, so they won't have that to help counter it a little bit.
It can be a little bit concerning, though, because it's not really something that Elevate has to worry about as much, or actually it's not something that Valence has to worry about as much as Elevate. Valence doesn't really need those shells because they're the ones who are going to be looking for that all in and get out.
That's right, with Lawbster's big final judgment ultimate, he's really trying to look to delete someone off the map. Ducky continuing to give no numbers some pressure over here, but actually no numbers is the one that's established a bit of a lead with the Bellona into the Osiris.
And that's probably just no numbers focusing a little bit more on the wave clear as opposed to Ducky, who might have been looking for some more poke potential. It's one of those matchups where it really does just go either way. It all depends on how those two really just want to play it out.
That was a good stun for BigManTingz. He could have been in a lot more trouble if he'd gotten walled or stunned there by Dardez. Instead, shutting him down and letting himself create a little bit more space. Cherryo has to back after taking a good bit of his damage as well. Now, no numbers is the one in danger of getting stunned, but he breaks the tether and is able to get away.
No numbers, though, just had to focus entirely on going in the opposite direction. Faeles actually looking for some potential follow-up, recognizing how poked out Cherryo was. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Valence maybe look towards Elevate's buffs, but not really too certain on that timer. So instead, they're just going to play it safe.
And again, we're sitting here about 11 minutes into the game, and I want to make sure we talk about just how important this match is for both of these two teams, Taco. We talked about it on the desk earlier, but that's why we see them playing it maybe a little bit slower than we might be used to seeing from these two squads in particular. This is a spot at Super Regionals that's on the line.
Well, considering that Baas has already taken an early spill, Elevate kind of need to slow down the pacing of this game. They don't really want to allow Valence to establish how quickly this one is being played out, because then they might find themselves at a bit of a disadvantage. Speaking of which, Faeles avoiding that freeze from Dardez by going into the Ratatoskr ultimate, but that's a pretty big team fighting ult that just got expended.
Elevate can breathe easy for about a little bit over a minute now, knowing they don't have to worry about that through the Cosmos. Gives them a little bit of chance, a little bit of time to maybe move up a little bit further in their respective jungles without having to worry about them crashing down on top of them. But we were talking a little bit earlier about these builds between our two mid laners. Lawbster, is he looking to go into the Book of Thoth now and start building a little bit later?
I would anticipate that that's exactly what his mentality is, kind of just focusing a little bit more on having that early mobility, especially since he knew he was against Dardez on Ymir, didn't really want to be trapped out by some early walls into freezes into death.
Giving himself just a little bit of extra mobility early will make him a little bit easier for him to survive. Now, trying to build into that damage, we often see a lot of pen coming after that too. Spear, Desolation, Obsidian Shard, likely going to be on the menu for our two mid laners. As again, Dardez and DeathPanter hanging around. BigManTingz knows they're there though, so he's not going to move too far out of position, but it looks like we might be getting our first Gold Fury dance here.
There really is just so much vision control coming out from Valence. Baas does have a ward placed down on top of that Gold Fury that Valence is unaware of, but everywhere else, all of the aggressive checkpoints around the map that you would want to try and venture through are completely controlled by Valence's vision.
And we talked a little bit earlier about how No Numbers had built a bit of a lead there over Ducky. Like you said, he might be having a little more focus on farming. That's something that's not going to be too big of an impact if we do see one of those Gold Fury fights. Our solo laners are both hanging back over on their respective sides, not looking to come in. So instead, it's going to be very reliant on that 4v4, where we see BigManTingz a little bit ahead of Dardez. See Funballer a little bit ahead of Baas, which could come in favor for him.
You have to keep in mind, though, that we could see some potential solo lane rotations very early on. It's only about 13 minutes. Dardez with a great wall there separating himself and Cherryo from BigManTingz. And right now, Baas also just trying to play it safe. He doesn't have quite enough stacks in his Devourer's Gauntlet yet to really get that power spike online. So the sustain that you would ideally want isn't really coming up into play just yet.
And Valence are signaling that they don't really want to try and force the objective just now. They were pulling it. They actually had Elevate kind of forced a little bit back. And instead, they end up dropping it, trying to pull off the kill. And like you said, Dardez does use an excellent wall to separate himself from the enemy team. But they dropped the objective. They're not looking to try and force that. They want to try and force a fight.
Baas is really just doing his best to try and hold his own. And so far, so good. The only death he's had is come at the expense of a gank. And Ducky actually just getting completely away for free on that speed buff invade.
Yeah, Ducky able to take that speed buff away. He does have to use that Lord of the Afterlife to get up over the wall, but I'm sure he's happy to make that trade as he's not looking to really be a part of any big team fights in the next minute or so. But Elevate look like they want to try and get some vision going here at the Gold Fury, but they're not looking to get started up just yet. You can see DeathPanter and Dardez moving a little bit back away and instead trying to play it slow. Make sure they get their sub to a position where he's comfortable playing.
Objective control is certainly in favor of Valence as long as
Funballer
Lawbster
might
is
be in
alive.
trouble over here on the left side. Cherryo going in aggressive on him. He's very low, but not able to get anything up. The ricochet from Baas! Whoa, sub no longer. He comes in looking good, taking down Funballer.
Oh, that is absolutely tragic for Funballer. With him being dead for at least 30 seconds, that is an immediate pull onto the Gold Fury.
What
right
a
now,
shot.
the rest of Valence trying to make the rotation. Faeles already up in the air, going into that through the Cosmos, trying to find the gank. He's going to actually land down on No Numbers, who's making the rotation over.
He does keep No Numbers away from the fight, but Elevate are going to try and continue to pull this Gold Fury. Funballer's still out for another 12 seconds after a big ricochet on that last engagement. Ducky does take the tier 1 on the right-hand side, and Elevate take the Gold Fury.
It's going to be No Numbers just trying to get away, barely staying alive away from Lawbster's ultimate. That final judgment just unable to clean him up, and Elevate had to commit to that Gold Fury because Ducky, we saw him just then split pushing that T1 solo lane tower.
And it was just a strong rotation from Elevate earlier. Yeah, Baas hit the highlight reel shot at the end, but it's because Cherryo put so much pressure onto Funballer earlier on. He was able to find that follow-up damage. Elevate immediately go back to the Gold Fury, and now they've got this game back evened up. But I do want to point out, I mean, Valance Squadron do still have a bit of a lead. They were at least a Gold Fury ahead just from First Blood and superior farming.
But Elevate being able to take away that first Gold Fury at least means that they'll still be in the running against Valence, as opposed to just letting them kind of slow bleed out this gold lead that they were starting to establish, as well as an experience lead. They were actually starting to get a decent ways ahead, and now Valence trying to bring it back in for themselves, aggressing straight onto that Portal Demon.
DeathPanter's here, doesn't have the Tycho drums available, but No Numbers comes in as well. Faeles goes over to zone him away. Ducky is here along with BigManTingz, and the damage from Lawbster bringing him very low. The body blocks were good to keep him from shield bashing. There's the Lord of the Afterlife over the top, and now the Thorns are ticking to slow down any return damage. DeathPanter up into the air, pounding on the drums, but it's not enough. Lawbster cleans him up. Thorn trying to keep him alive against the damage from from Dardez, and he is able to escape from that at least.
And Dardez actually trying to wall Faeles off, recognizing how low the Ratatoskr is. He kind of is thinking about re-engaging, but instead, Valence going to drop the Portal Demon and look to reset off of it. Elevate just a little bit too healthy, still able to contest, not really making Valence feel comfortable enough, despite DeathPanter already being dead.
And DeathPanter falling there it's pretty tough for Elevate. He was already going into a little bit more of a defensive mindset build, so for that to not be able to pay off for him in that last engagement is going to hurt. But Taco, I mean, I've been wanting to talk about you. I mean, Baas gets that hot kill over there in the duo lane. How big is that for a sub coming into play for a game this important?
That's massive because he's also doing it up against Funballer, and Funballer is definitely a top-tier ADC, so it's not so much even a team morale boost as much as it is just him being able to build up confidence for himself. Sometimes, even when subs are able to step up into the spotlight, they can still be a little bit shaky, have the nerves coming into play, even if you've been around these guys for a long time, and that right there is the kind of plays that Baas needs to keep making if Elevate want to walk away with at least one of these games.
Baas looking good, at least early on, but Elevate doing a good job of keeping things close. Blink in from Dardez, gets the freeze off onto Faeles, who has to sit through the entire duration, no way to cleanse it. DeathPanter, or rather Lawbster's charging the ultimate up to the air. It's Faeles who lands down on Dardez in the back. He gets taken down. Now it's DeathPanter trying to stay alive, but he gets mezzed in the middle, trying to dash out. The stun from BigManTingz was too good. Cherryo falls as well. 3 quick kills for Valence in the middle lane.
Complete clockwork, and that just looked like a great and well-executed gank/rotation out of Valence. And now with 3 members being dead from Elevate, there's no way anybody tries to contest, and sure enough, that Portal Demon's already gone, even if they were thinking about it.
And this is one of those situations, Taco, where it's not as if, you know, Valence built up a big lead or something like that, and then they go get the objectives. They just kind of caught Faeles out with a blink in mid lane, win the team fight on the back of it, and now they're trying to go for a 19-minute Fire Giant. No one's around. They recognize Ducky is on top of No Numbers, keeping him away as well. They've got the damage. They can burn this down. No Numbers looking to come in for the cheeky steal. He's just a little bit off. Valence Squadron do secure it, and now No Numbers pays with it for his life. 6-1 are the kills, and now Valence Squadron are in control.
It was worth the attempt, and I can't fault No Numbers for going for it. With so much being on the line for Elevate, that's just one of the plays that you kind of have to sacrifice yourself for. Now, though, Elevate's well aware that Valence has that Fire Giant around themselves, and so sure enough, they're just trying to get the groupings to respond to Valence's tower siege that's going to be coming up next.
And it really feels like all this came down to is just that one engagement in middle lane that goes Valence's favor, and they take Portal Demon and Fire Giant off the back of it. That's what we see from these veteran teams. They take that little bit you give them, and they get a mile.
The problem here for Elevate is that they had that one moment against a Funballer, and those are kind of just the plays that they needed to keep looking for. They can't really afford to try and take up the team fights, because the second that they enter the team fights, it seems a little bit disjointed from Elevate. A couple of the members just always seem to be separating off into the back line, and that's just opening up so many different opportunities for Faeles to go up into that Ratatoskr ultimate through the Cosmos and just jump down onto anyone.
Now the rest of Elevate looking to do what they can to slow down Valence, who are thinking about trying to force this tier 2 tower down in mid. They still don't have a minion wave with them, so they might back off for now, or at least wait until it catches back up with them. But this 5v5 fight, this is where Elevate have to show up and try and slow down some of this bleeding from Valance Squadron.
I don't see Valence really looking for the Phoenix, but I do see them looking for the team fight. Ducky already jumping into the mix of everybody, getting targeted out pretty heavily here, able to walk through those Ymir walls though. And Lawbster actually with a huge final judgment, taking out half of Baas's HP.
Lawbster hit multiple members of that final judgment, and after that, Elevate had no way to continue to contest. Faeles going to come steal this speed buff. They're coming back on this side, but Fire Giant's already down, so this is more about stripping the farm off the rest of the map, enjoying that gold they got from that tier 2 tower, and now they're sitting up 6,000.
But it's only going to get worse. The Gold Fury is already gone, pretty much. And that is just one of the benefits of having a Fafnir as well. And BigManTingz, he still has that ultimate available. He hasn't even entered the Draconic form just yet. But whenever he does, you can kind of expect Valence to just purely turn and burn for the team fight.
And you saw how close the game was through about 19 minutes and 20 or so seconds. But it's only been like 2 minutes since that fight that happened in mid lane where things have gone really out of control in favor of Valance Squadron. It's certainly not at a point where Elevate can't fight back into it. But now it's Valance the ones who get to decide where the fights are happening. They're going to have control over that Fire Giant pit. And Elevate just got to try and stick around.
That's just one of the brutal aspects of competitive play, is that even the slightest mistake can make it incredibly difficult to crawl back into. And for Elevate, it certainly isn't completely out of their control just yet, but this is an uphill battle, and it's one that's going to be very difficult to get back into control of.
And they really got to keep an eye out for Faeles. He's been going up with that through the Cosmos, landing in the back onto DeathPanter, punishing him for trying to go up into those Taiko drums and putting out damage. So making sure they keep an eye on that and keeping DeathPanter safe in the backline is going to be a big part of this. Looks like they're trying to maybe not put up too hard a defense on this Tier 2 tower. How do you feel about that call?
For Elevate, they shouldn't really be trying to contest the T2 towers. I don't even fault the numbers for cleaning up that solo lane T1, just giving his team a little bit of gold. Plus, Elevate are probably going to be able to defend the Phoenixes well enough. And yeah, this is it. Valence are actually just going to back off since they don't have that Fire Giant buff around them anymore, or it's about to be wearing off, excuse me, in a couple of seconds here. And so because of that, they just don't feel comfortable with trying to secure a Phoenix siege here.
No numbers, just getting a little bit more that he can off the map. As you said, Fire Giant has fallen off. That'll be back up in about 50 seconds and very likely will be the focus for Valance Squadron. They already have some wards around that area, but now they got a chance to go back, buy everything back up, come out, and try and force back Elevate and have one more Fire Giant fight. But they got a team that can steal it.
There's just not a whole lot of damage because of how far behind Elevate is right now. They're having to rely so heavily on Cherryo's ultimate. But the problem is following up after. That's still a fairly mobile squad from Valance, and even trying to pin down Lawbster or Funballer, the two members without hard escapes, and thought that technically he has that line dash, but a Funballer in particular, it just outputs so much damage right now, and he's so tanky himself with the Shoguns and the Gladiator Shield that it's just difficult for Elevate to really do anything.
Especially with something like the Ymir pick when he ends up behind can be in trouble. Cherryo, though, going in on the Lawbster, forces out the Aegis and the beads, so those won't be available for him. So Cherryo getting a bit of a win for Valance Squad going into this next fight as Faeles puts pressure on the no numbers, actually uses the ultimate.
But it's going to be the Portal Demon being aggressed on already, and Lawbster's just there to help assist Funballer, and sure enough, BigManTingz showing up to the party as well, but no one from Elevate can really get anywhere close.
They're comfortable not going for the smaller objective. The one they don't want to give up here, it seems, is the call, is the Fire Giant. But they've got to make something happen off the play Cherryo made for them in middle lane. Taking those important cooldowns away from Lawbster has got to be the call for them to try and get him punished. They've got still about another 120 seconds to make it happen, but Valance Squadron are playing safe.
I wouldn't be too surprised to see Elevate forfeit this next Fire Giant and then just look to try and defend their Phoenixes. That's probably going to be their safest bet. However, if they let Valance have the Fire Giant again for free, I do feel as though even if Elevate try to defend their Phoenixes, they're probably screwed either way. It's kind of just one of those lose-lose situations.
Funballer already has that Fire Giant down half health. Ducky and Faeles establishing a front line. Dardez a little bit off the mark with that last freeze. He's not able to get anything out of it, but the Fire Giant was reset, and now it's back up. And once again, Funballer's ready to start chunking at it. Ducky is the one trying to keep everyone away. Dardez running in, no numbers as well. The call is to drop the Fire Giant and go for the fight. Cherryo's here now, using that shield to reflect, but the final judgment brings him very low. DeathPanter up into the air with his Taiko drums. Ducky takes down Cherryo. First kill goes in favor of Valance. Dardez is also very low. Ducky cleans that kill up. 3 quick kills in favor of Valance Squadron. Now Elevate with only 2 members have to fall back. Tier 2 tower looks to be in trouble as Baas looks to be in trouble as well. It's a deicide, Taco.
Didn't even need the Fire Giant. Valance, they just wanted the fight instead. BigManTingz still able to coerce his entire team, means that this T2 tower won't be standing for much longer. And sure enough, just like that, Elevate's hopes of trying to defend this Fire Giant and that remaining objective on the map is going to prove to be all but impossible. Because once this Fire Giant's gone, Elevate's going to have to try and defend not only the 5-man Fire Giant squad, but it is just such a massive lead right now for Valance.
And this is so important for Valance Squadron. They need all 3 points from this set. They got to win both games if they want a chance at going to Super Regionals, just because of where they are right now, sitting at 5th place, and because Energy and Rival face off next. Either one of those would pass them in the standings if they don't get this 2-0. And getting the first game looking this strong, it's looking like they just might have a shot at it, but they got to clean up game 1 here first, and they're in a good spot to do it.
And they need to make sure to be consistent throughout the set if they want to find themselves with a 2-0 victory. But second game is still hard to determine how it's going to go, although this is certainly going to be a bit of a momentum boost if Valence are able to walk away with it. And it looks like they've set themselves up for the best case possible, which is getting the #1 game victory.
And that's a 16,000 gold lead in their favor now. 11-1 are the kills. We're only 27 minutes into the game, but it kind of feels like Valence have made it even faster. Like with the way that they blew open that lead, it was slow to start the game off, but once they found an opening off that commitment from Dardez in mid lane, they have not looked back since. Valence Squadron ready to push down this Phoenix.
This has been one of Ducky's better performances as well, I believe. It has certainly been a much more impactful game from him than what we've been accustomed to seeing out of the solo laner. And now Ducky taking up a couple of those tower shots, not even really concerned about it. Those Phoenix shots are doing almost nothing to him.
And it's really difficult for Dardez to go in and create any kind of setup for DeathPanter, who's already very low. He's going to have to go back and heal up in the fountain. Funballer ready to step up and start swinging into that Phoenix. Over the side, Cherryo tries to come in, but the return damage is too good. He'll have to back off. The wall to slow down some of the damage from Funballer, but it's not enough. Dardez in a lot of trouble, and he's locked down as the Phoenix falls as well. BigManTingz into the Dragon Form. Final Judgment comes through and nicks Dardez as well. Faeles lands on top, but no kills except for the Phoenix.
Dardez just a little bit too tanky for Valence to try and clean up, but they found what they were looking for at the end of it all. That was the left-hand side Phoenix. They still have a little bit more time as well, about a minute and a half if they want to keep pushing, and that seems to be the game plan, sure enough. BigManTingz ready to coerce his team one more time before that Draconic form wears off.
And they still have Funballer and Ducky's ultimates for this engagement. I believe actually everyone on Elevate sitting on their ults too, so they didn't use any in that Phoenix defense, so this is going to look where they're going to fight. In blinks Cherryo, use the ultimate on the Funballer, who's isolated by the wall. 3-man freeze from Dardez sets up Cherryo with the first kill of this fight. Faeles looking to take him down though on the side. The thorns are enough to slow down the DPS, so he can't keep fighting into it, and he's going to continue to chase and clean it up.
I thought Cherryo was going to go away for a second, but the same story as what happened to No Numbers is the case instead. Dart is going with the blink freeze, pulls out the purification beads from Lawbster, but this Phoenix is still getting completely chunked away at, and sure enough, Valence going to be able to take that one out as well.
So even without Funballer, they have no problem cleaning up the mid Phoenix as well. 2 Phoenixes now down in favor of Valance Squadron. Elevate had a great initiation in that team fight, Taco. It looked like it was going to go their way. What happened?
It just got completely cracked wide open. Cherryo commits. He finds the cleanup crew, but unfortunately, Valence just had the immediate chase down factor come into play. Once Cherryo was that far ahead of his team and separated from them, it made it all too easy for Faeles to go back around, chase him, take him out, and then, of course, only 3 members really left to try and help out on Elevate, since No Numbers got caught out too.
They end up losing that engagement despite what looked like maybe a strong initiation to it. Both Phoenixes end up falling. Now Valance Squadron have the luxury of pushing in fire minions to split the focus of Elevate as they go to push down that last remaining Phoenix. Fire Giant, though, is about to fall off in a minute or so, or about to fall off right now, and will be respawning in a minute. So Valance Squadron will likely wait to pick that up before they attack again, and I don't know if Elevate can try and defend it.
The level disparity between Lawbster and DeathPanter has just been absolutely brutal. I mean, you saw how much damage Lawbster was able to do onto DeathPanter, and DeathPanter has a Hide of the Urchin online. It's just that without any stacks, that health means absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it's rough that he has not been able to get that stacked up. Sitting 0-3-0, hasn't been a part of the 2 kills that Elevate have been able to secure so far in the game, so he is limiting the effectiveness of that Hide of the Urchin, as Valance Squadron now, with 25 seconds to go before the Fire Giant starter, establishing vision control and forcing out Elevate, who instead have to focus on trying to push up these minion waves as far as they can.
Valence are just hungry for this win, and for good reason. We've talked about it so many times already, but they need this set.
Yeah.
Without this set, it's Super Regionals. They might as well just kiss goodbye to it, and so getting 1 win here now is going to be the break or make it pretty much for Valence, and one more time. Just going to take out that Fire Giant. Third time's the charm. Wouldn't be surprised to see an immediate Phoenix Siege right after.
We did see a good engagement from Elevate last game, so we know that they're capable of putting up some form of defense on these Phoenixes. Baas and Cherryo are going to clean up this tower first before they back, but Valance Squadron they clearly got to recognize that they're going to keep trying to push down the way before they can set up their defense.
They know that Elevate's Cherryo and Baas are going to be back in time, though, to try and help defend this Phoenix. The question is, will that make a difference, considering how far ahead Valance already is? Ducky looking to be the first member to try and venture into that Phoenix tower line, and sure enough, the walls from Dardez still enough to kind of bide out Elevate's time.
Elevate now trying to find a way to slow down the aggression from Valance Squadron and their Phoenix. This is the game. If they don't get game one, they can kiss their chances goodbye because they got to get the full set in onto DeathPanter to the back, who already has to blink away. No numbers comes in with the rally here, but fails. It's through the Cosmos as well. Looking to come land to the back line. He does. Knock up 2 members, setting up the final judgment, which lands on the Baas. Fails, cleans up Cherryo. Phoenix still very strong at this point, but it's the team fight that's going heavily in favor of Valance.
And already DeathPanter's falling as well. The Suns have come out from Baas, but not enough to make a difference. Faeles and Ducky just tanking up all that damage, but take it back. It actually isn't that much. Funballer eliminating Baas for final measure, and with the deicide, spells the Titan crashing down.
Valance Squadron able to pick up game one in a set where they can't afford to lose even once. Now they go into game two, and Elevate have to be thinking, after such a strong split, could it all be slipping away just this fast?
And that is one of the problems, and it goes to show the difference that this team does make with Jermaine being there. I think that they are sorely missing Jermaine's presence right now. As to whether or not Baas is able to step it up for the team, it's going to be hard to say, although I wouldn't really want to put all that pressure onto a sub. Again, It's got to be coming out of Cherryo and no numbers, and right now that was just a really well-executed game by Valance, not allowing Cherryo and no numbers to have that sort of impact.
Yeah, and I'm not in the comms with them, but there's a lot to be said for being comfortable with who your teammates are, with knowing that you can rely on them. Having to spare maybe like half an extra second of a thought to something in a match at the SPL level can definitely cost you a game, as we did see it was only one engagement. So it's not so much Baas's skill, but just how comfortable are they working together.
And I don't think that it's an issue of comfort. I think that these players know each other well enough. It's more so just trying to get that synergy online, because even though you can know somebody and even though you can play alongside of them fairly evenly, it's still really difficult trying to immediately mesh that play style together.
We do have